Alright, so last episode we got the engine out of the car here. Now I'm working on disassembling it. I'm going to start with, all the big stuff on the outside, and then once I have all that off, go into the housings and the rotors and all that. So far I've just taken a few basic things off. The front fan here, sitting over there, that was just 4 nuts. The air pump had this hose, 1 nut down here or 1 bolt for adjusting, and then 3 bolts up there to hold it in place. So now I'm going to go ahead and get this lower intake manifold off. I'll take this heat shroud off and then the exhaust off. And then, probably go with the flywheel, get that off, and then get all these pulleys off and this whole water pump and all that out of there. And then should be easier to work with from there. Alright, we got the lower intake manifold off right there. All soaked in oil and gasoline here because the engine was so flooded before I pulled it. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And here is the lower intake manifold. Pretty neat, it's got fins. This is the heat shield for it. It's held on with 4 screws, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom there. I snapped the one in the bottom because these screws are so tiny and they're all super rusted. So I'll drill that out, probably get all new screws here. Heat shield's still in good condition though, and these headers don't look the coolest. I really wish I could get some like racing beat headers, just some simple pipes. Might not be in the budget though. We'll have to see about that. Got the exhaust manifold off here. You can see in there all the carbon and stuff, and let's see. Yeah, you can see that's the edge of the rotor right there. Try to get it on camera. It's very hard to turn by hand. 1 second. Let's see if I can. Yeah. It's pretty neat. You can see right in there. You can see the apex seals. I don't know how to just visually tell if they're worn down, but they don't look the tallest. I don't know though. It is cool though. You can hear the air going in and then hear it being pushed out. So pretty neat. It'll be exciting to get all of this taken apart and see what's going on in there. All right, so we got the water pump off. I think it was it was 4 nuts and 3 bolts.
Yeah, put that shit on.
This is Tyler and Connor. They're helping me. So I got that off. Coolant went everywhere, which is fun. And now I'm getting the oil pan off.
Enjoy the process. Welcome back. We ripped the bottom off this thing.
We took the oil pan off.
Nice. Cleanest part of the car is like right about here.
I know. It's so clean.
Oh, this is very clean.
Just a ton of 10mm bolts around the outside. Some other small things. The crank angle position sensor right here goes through and meshes with the you'll get a better view of it later. There's a gear down there that looks pretty cool. This is just a screw you can unscrew to twist it and adjust the timing. That's the only screw holding it on. So get that one off. That's it sitting right there. And then the mount that went to the motor mount just bolted in right down there. And then according to the service manual, it looks like you take, well, I don't know if you have to do this first, but you can take off these pulleys here with these nuts here on the inside. And then this is the main eccentric shaft bolt that goes all the way through. Before I undo this bolt to take this entire housing off, first I'm going to focus on this side and get the clutch plate, and the flywheel all off. The clutch plate here just connects with these bolts around the edge and sits on these dowel pins just for alignment. you're going to want one of these flywheel stopper tools that they make for these engines. This one was supposed to work for my car and go into these 2 bolt holes, but that, when it's lined up, doesn't do anything. So I had to kind of jerry rig it, just leave it down, put this bolt down there just to stop it from moving up, which barely works. It's not ideal, but can't be that bad. If I do this in the future, I'll order an actual one of these off Atkins and not Amazon. But I wanted it next day delivery, so that was my only option for that. All right, we got the clutch and pressure plate off here. I dropped this straight onto the ground when I took it out, which, probably isn't ideal. I am replacing the clutch anyway, so I don't really care. But, yep, there is that. This is all old and crusty. I get a nice new fresh one anyways. Flywheel's on here. This is a pretty big nut. That is 54 millimeters, and that is the nut that keeps it all together, pretty much. Well, it doesn't really keep it together, but that's probably the most torque on a nut in this whole car, I'd imagine. And I do not have a 54 millimeter socket. Neither does any of the auto parts stores in town. So I had to order one off Amazon, $34 for a socket I'll only use twice, once to take it off, again to put it on. But I'm sure I'll use it again in the future. That gets here tomorrow. So there's not much else I can do now. I can get this entire front housing here off. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and do, and then I'm going to call it a night. Alright, so we got this nut off. Use that breaker bar down there, 19 millimeters. Be warned, that is a place that oil is. This is controlling. It's got an O-ring and all that. Looks like it's leaking around it. I don't know if that's how that's supposed to be, because the O-ring is down there. I don't know, maybe that's something an O-ring would fix. I don't think it's that big of a deal. The engine has been draining oil for the past week straight, sitting here with no oil pan, so I think it's fine, but I put a pan underneath it. And then, with that undone, this thing comes off, this giant thing. I guess it sits inside this this kind of rubber piece. Looks like it's sealed up against it. This, I believe, is the that's the thermal pellet. When it heats up, it allows oil to flow through, so it lets your oil stay at operating temperature like a thermostat. It's got a little spring on it. And yeah, there's a little notch here on this this guy there that lines up with that notch on there, so it's pretty easy to reinstall. And then, yeah, so since all that's off, it should just be this housing. There's bolts all along the edge here. Make sure to keep track of what's what, because they're all different lengths. So, got all the bolts off for this front cover. I set them up like this when I took them out. So this is from left to right. I think it's just really baked on there with the gasket there. All of those gaskets have been like that. Water pump, the lower intake housing, all of them. The upper intake manifold, I think I said lower intake housing? Lower intake manifold. The upper intake manifold, it was like that. That's when I did a long time ago. It was like one of the first things I did to the car. It took me like 2 days straight of chiseling with a razor and trying to get that gasket off, soaking in all different kinds of stuff. So that's going to be a lot of fun to do on these. At least they're not in the engine bay, though, so I don't have to be hunched over the whole time. And without the front cover on, it's actually pretty cool. So this is the main E-shaft here, and looks like it has a gear here, which has a chain to this gear down here, and underneath this kind of bell-looking thing, you can take this bolt off. That's the oil pump behind there. It's got 4 bolts holding it on. So that, this spins the oil pump, which pumps the oil through the system. And then this gear here, this actually interfaces with these 2 gears. This is the crank angle sensor, which I took off a few steps ago. I just put it on for showcasing what it looks like. So it has this gear here for the angle sensor, and then this one for the oil metering pump. I'm making a separate video on the oil metering pump. It'll probably be out soon. And yeah, it's pretty neat. You don't see gears like this all that often. It's pretty cool looking. And it interfaces pretty simply with these two guys here. It's really interesting getting into the engine and seeing all like the engineering and design decisions and everything that went into it. Because that's a pretty neat mechanism. Pretty cool way of, running a pump and a angle sensor and an oil pump. 2 different oil pumps, I guess, off of just one centric shaft, which is pretty much all you need for this rotary engine. It doesn't have valve timing or anything, so it's got this one shaft that spins, and it's got 1, 2, 3 things connected to it. I mean, it's just really cool. This engine's pretty simple, which is, I guess, why it's so fun to work on. Also, I'm really looking forward, again, I've probably said this 100 times, to cleaning everything off. Real thick layer of grime and such on all the parts of this engine, really. I kind of did some work on these housings already, but I got some wire brushes I'm going to take to those, maybe make them shiny a little bit. That'll look really sick when it's back together. I'm debating whether or not I want to paint these centerpieces. I think I said that in the last video, but painting these black, like a glossy black, and then shiny silver here, that always looks sick. You probably will barely be able to see it, but it looks really clean. But yeah, my plan is, you can see on the pump and all that, just everything here. It's not too bad. Like, this is pretty average looking. Same with that, but I want it all shiny and brand new like before I put anything back in. Alright, so once you got the front cover off, this gear I was talking about just slides off. So does the top half of the oil pump chain. And I believe, yeah, this counterweight slides off too. You just have to bend this washer, undo this nut, and that lets you take the pulley off. And then there's 4 bolts for the oil pump. Alright, so once you get this thing off, you can take stuff up here off. There's a little, this is a bearing you want to keep track of here, and then it looks like this key is actually its own separate thing. So that's something you want to keep track of too. Alright, so with most of that stuff off in the front, before I undo all these, I am going to take off the flywheel. I think I mentioned it earlier in the video, I guess. I'm not sure, I'm all confused with how I'm recording this now. But this came in the mail. Had to get an adapter for it since I just have a 1/2-inch breaker bar. That fits right on there. Big old socket, big old nut. So we're going to see if we can break that loose. Should be fun. Alright, so after a whole afternoon of trying to get this bolt off, it is still on there. Here is the flywheel stopper piece that I bought. As you can see, it's all messed up. There's one Atkins rotary sells that's actually like a good one. That's like a big solid block of metal pretty much, and not, whatever this is. I thought, maybe this would be good enough. Apparently not. Yeah, this thing's supposed to go to 300 foot-pounds when you're tightening it on there. And it's taking quite a lot more than that to get it off. Because I have a 3-foot breaker bar that I put my whole weight on, and it didn't budge. So maybe it was like Loctited, maybe it's just really on there. I don't know. I'm letting it soak in PB Blaster for a while. This came off of there, which is no good, when I had that stopper thing on there. So I was trying to tighten that. This just shot off. So that's no fun. a new rear iron. It's about $600, which isn't the worst thing ever, but I think I can skate by without it, because this is just one of six transmission mounting points. It goes to that top one on the transmission there, but it also goes in this jacking or engine lift hook thing that goes through both of those, so it's all sandwiched with one bolt. So that means I can't lower this engine into the engine bay without that there, unless I have the transmission on there as well. So I think what I might do is I might just skip buying a new rear plate, unless, of course, it's all fucked up on the inside. Then I'd be getting one anyways. But when I rebuild everything and put it back together, I'll put the transmission on the engine so that that thing is sandwiched to the transmission, and then I will just lower the engine and the transmission in as one unit. So that's, I think, how we'll get it in there, because I don't want to spend another $600. I'm sure you can't blame me. So for now, since that one's all messed up, I'm going to buy the actual goods flywheel stopper off Atkins Rotary. So that'll probably get here in like a week. I'll have to figure something out. Maybe just attach it to this and then like clamp it down so that the teeth are meshing on this side, because that obviously isn't going to work up there. But I think I can make it work just to get this off. So I'll get that ordered, get it in, get it fixed on there so it actually keeps the flywheel from spinning. Hit this with a blowtorch for like 10 minutes probably. I don't know, I've seen people do it and it's taken that long. Probably get a much longer pry bar, get this whole engine more secured, I guess. Maybe lower it onto like the floor, and then like take this off so this whole thing will just sit flat on the floor. I don't know, because this is pretty cheap and janky too, but we'll see. I mean, that probably won't break. I don't know, but it's late, so I'm gonna call it a night and come back to this in like 2 weeks once I get the flywheel stopper.